Welcome to Linea Light podcast section. Visit our website linealight.com.
Light and Talk with Raluca Dascalita. Light pollution. The side effects on humans of the new age.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Linea Light podcast section. Our special guest today, Raluca Dascalita from Delta Lighting Design in London, will be talking about the impact of light pollution on our well-being. Welcome, Raluca.
Good morning, Sylvia. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm happy to engage in this particular topic because lately I have been interested to explore how what we do, that is, working with artificial light, impacts the general well-being of every one of us.
We always approach the problem of light pollution with particular attention to the environment and animals. Are humans exempt from the negative influence of light?
We do, yes. A lot of research is invested in establishing how light pollution affects, for example, the routes of migrating birds, because they can fly for 10 days and nights continuously with almost no sleep, and they are guided by the moonlight, so of course artificial light confuses them. Or artificial light affects insects, who are now either more exposed to predators, or if they are glowing insects, for example, they don't get enough contrast to glow in the dark for their potential mates. So we can imagine the drama in this story. So it really is a chain effect. And we're the ones that started it because we humans have our own needs. And these needs have to do with our necessity to create, to express ourselves, to conquer the night. And we have conquered the night with the best intentions and unaware of the possible negative consequences. But we've traded this luxury of long waking hours for our health. We're abusing artificial light and we're abusing our screens to a point where our behavior is interfering with our well-being. And especially the younger generations. Right before bed, we scroll down until we exhaust our brains to sleep. So we've become sleep deprived, which makes us grumpy, irritable, less patient, less kind. And in time, these episodes of burst just turn into chronic fatigue, which slowly takes us into depression and anxiety disorders. So to answer your question, humans are not exempt from the influence of light pollution. In fact, light pollution and the way we use artificial lighting seem to have devastating effects on our well-being. It is by no means the only factor that affects our mental hygiene, but it is one factor. And if we want to improve our quality of life overall, we have to fight on all fronts. And artificial light is one of the factors that need to be tamed.
What happens to humans on a physiological and hormonal level when exposed to light pollution?
Well, to understand how we react to light pollution, we could look at how our brain reacts to light in general. So in terms of lighting, our brain reacts to light in two main aspects. On the one hand, we have the visual system. The visual system helps us form images on our cortex and is mediated through the two classical photoreceptor cells on our retina, the rods and the cones. On the other hand, we react to light through a non-visual system. And this non-visual system is the one that regulates our circadian rhythm. This is the system that aligns our sleep-wake states to the night-day cycles. Now, I think if we want to understand the depth to which light impacts our well-being, it is important to understand how the non-visual system works. So the visual information gathered by rods and cones is sent to the brain via an intermediary neuron, which is also based in the retina. And this intermediary neuron is called retinal ganglion cell. But about 20 years ago, it was discovered that out of the entire population of retinal ganglion cells, a very small number, under 5%, contain a photosensitive protein undetected until then. And this photosensitive protein is called melanopsin. Now, melanopsin is capable of detecting light, and the interesting thing is that melanopsin can detect light completely independent from rods and cones. Now, this photopigment, melanopsin, is highly sensitive to short wavelengths, in the range of 460-480 nanometers, which is blue light. And given enough light intensity, melanopsin reacts to light even through the closed lid, even while we are asleep. So once melanopsin detects light, blue light in particular, a signal is sent to the pineal gland that rich blue morning light has been detected, so the pineal gland stops producing melatonin. And this leads to an inability to fall asleep or keep ourselves asleep. But there is more to this physiological cycle. As our body operates based on a circadian rhythm, once we expose ourselves to blue light and suppress the production of melatonin, it takes between 30 and 60 minutes for the adrenal glands to start producing cortisol. And cortisol, which is commonly known as the stress hormone, is a steroid. Cortisol is the hormone that makes us feel awake and alert. It regulates our response to stress. It regulates our metabolism. But prolonged exposure to cortisol leads to more intense mood shifts, anxiety, depression, lack of focus, migraines, weight gain, heart attacks, strokes. So imagine if we expose ourselves to artificial light, in essence LED light, that is rich in short wavelengths, for 2-3 hours before sleep. We stop producing melatonin. We start producing cortisol. We basically expose ourselves to stress at a time when we are programmed to relax profoundly. Now, at the same time, on a more optimistic note, there are also some studies, though inconclusive for now, that melanopsin may have a role in cognition and learning and memory tasks. And that is also related to the way melanopsin reacts to light. So these studies showed an increased memory capacity when melanopsin is triggered by blue light compared to green light, for example. So as I mentioned, more research is needed in this area. So it may be that enhanced blue light is great for morning activities in offices, schools, in nurseries, because it promotes the production of cortisol, which helps us focus. So what appears to be the case is that our well-being is highly influenced by the quality of the artificial light we expose ourselves to and by the way we use artificial light.
In the last century, man has changed his lifestyle and became very visual. The pace of life has changed, and thanks to artificial lighting, we can enjoy more hours of light than in the past. Are there any long-term side effects?
Well, evolutionary, we have been visual creatures from our beginnings. 50% of our cortex is dedicated to processing visual information. However, in the past century, we've exposed ourselves to more light in general. I mean, our houses are now facing south because now we can regulate temperature inside. Our clothes are lighter and we expose more skin to sunlight. And also we're constantly with our eyes into the screens for work, for entertainment. So I guess the long-term side effects of this overexposure to light are just beginning to show. On the one hand, we try to keep ourselves active and excited about life, and we constantly seek to absorb more experiences. Yet we find ourselves fatigued and emotionally reactive. On the other hand, random late nights lead to chaotic circadian rhythms, and these constant disruptions in our sleep and wake cycles are linked to chronic diseases, like digestive problems and muscle tension, heart conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes. But I think we've got to a very good point where we are genuinely interested in the quality of our lives. So we look at all these factors that affect us, our diet, the exercise we get, the quality of the air we breathe, even the pace we breathe at, the kind of information we expose ourselves to. And among all these factors, there is also light. And for a long time, artificial light has been much overlooked, but its influence on our overall mood and health is real.
What mission should the latest generation of LEDs have?
Well, here we are, LEDs, a huge factor in the equation. Definitely, linking research in LED technology to research in neuroscience is actually key. And there seem to be quite a few studies happening right now, measuring how melanopsin is triggered by different intensities of light, by different light spectrums, by different color renderings. And this is very important. These studies are designed to consider the time of the day, because it's a very different outcome if we expose ourselves to blue light early in the morning or late in the evening just before bed, right? And since we spend more time indoors in artificial light than we spend under sunlight, I noticed there is a real interest for LEDs to get better at mimicking daylight in terms of spectrum and color rendering. But they still have a long way to go to mimic the subtle variations of natural light throughout the day, to replicate this feeling we get at dusk, at dawn, when clouds cover the sun. So from this point of view, artificial light still feels a bit static, even with dimming and controls. But I think that the most urgent issue right now is that we are exposed to a lot of blue light in the evening, so maybe LED research could focus on figuring out how to limit the actual emission of short wavelengths. And probably this can be done with a revolutionary blend of phosphors that filter out blue light but improve the spectrum in the red-orange range.
I would like to conclude this interview with one last question. What do you think are the responsibilities of lighting designers then?
Well, it's hard for me to formulate responsibilities. I mean, beyond completing lighting projects to the best of our abilities. But I think we are on a very good path already. We've already started the conversation about light pollution and its impact on our well-being, and I think that as our profession matures and gains weight, we can take a sidestep from architecture. I mean, undeniably they go hand in hand and always will, but lighting design also has its own separate mission, so our responsibility might be to keep repeating that we have an over-illumination problem and then explain this problem to every single one of our clients, to city managements, to the general public, and then also to offer solutions. I mean, in a way we are quite lucky, I would say, because neuroscience provides us with all the scientific proof necessary to back up our concerns. And the fix to lighting pollution is one of the easiest to implement. So, pointing exterior lights downwards, using controlled beams, lowering light levels, lowering the height of the luminaires, pushing for better CRI, for fuller light spectrums, pushing for light control that is more correlated with daylight and with actual human activity. All these measures are readily available, so I would say that if we keep being vocal about the nature of this problem and we become more strict about implementing these solutions, then we stand a fair chance to trigger positive change.
It has been a real pleasure to have you as a guest, Raluca. Thank you very much for sharing your passion for light with us. See you soon.
Thank you, Sylvia. It was a real pleasure to be your guest today. And I would also like to thank the audience. I really hope I get to meet some of you soon and we can continue this conversation together because this is such a broad topic. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Discover more on our website linealight.com.